The desperate call. The twin suns of Celestis Prime cast their golden light across the vast agricultural plains where the Zephyrian colonists had built their peaceful civilization. For 3 generations, these gentle beings had turned the once barren world into a paradise of flowing rivers, crystal cities, and endless fields of luminescent crops that fed dozens of worlds across the outer rim. Elder Lyra stood in her observation tower, watching the morning mist rise from the valley below. Her silver hair caught the sunlight as she breathed in the sweet air of her homeworld. The Zephyrians were a race that valued peace above all else. Their slender frames and large, compassionate eyes reflected their gentle nature. They had no armies, no weapons of war, only the tools of creation and growth. Captain Marcus Webb, the colony's defense coordinator, climbed the spiral stairs to join her. His role was largely ceremonial, since the Zephyrians had never faced a serious threat. Their world was far from the major trade routes, and their reputation for hospitality had earned them friends throughout the galaxy. "The harvest reports are excellent this season," Marcus said, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his people. "The Terran colonies have requested twice their usual grain shipment, and the Altarian medical stations need our healing herbs urgently." Lyra smiled, her heart warming at the thought of their crops bringing health and sustenance to distant worlds. This was the Zephyrian way, to give freely and ask for nothing in return. "Our ancestors would be proud to see how far we have come, from refugees fleeing a dying world to the breadbasket of 3 sectors. Their peaceful morning was shattered by an explosion that shook the tower's foundations. Both Zephyrians rushed to the observation deck, their eyes widening in horror at the sight before them. Dark ships filled the sky like a plague of metal locusts. These vessels bore the crimson markings of the Vorthan Syndicate, a name that struck fear into the hearts of civilized beings across the galaxy. The lead ship, a massive dreadnought scarred by countless battles, hung in the atmosphere like a predator savoring the moment before the kill. Smaller raiders swarmed around it, their weapons already charging with deadly energy. The Vorthons were known throughout the galaxy as raiders, slavers, and destroyers. They took what they wanted and left only ashes behind. From the dreadnoughts, Bridge Warlord Kazek surveyed the peaceful world below through his ship's sensors. His reptilian features were twisted in a cruel smile that revealed rows of sharp teeth. The Vorthons were a warrior race that had rejected civilization in favor of conquest. Their society was built on strength, brutality, and the subjugation of weaker species. "Look at them," Kazek hissed to his second-in-command. "So peaceful, so defenseless. This world will make an excellent addition to our territory. The grain fields will feed our growing fleet, and these gentle creatures will make obedient slaves." The first wave of attacks began without warning. Vorthon fighters screamed through the atmosphere, their energy weapons carving burning scars across them. Crystal cities. The Zephyrians had no shields, no defensive systems, no way to fight back. They could only run and hide as their beautiful world burned around them. Captain Webb's communications center filled with desperate calls from across the planet. Settlement after settlement reported the same horror. Vorthon raiders landing, taking everything of value, and capturing anyone who could not escape. The peaceful farmers and artists of Celestis Prime were helpless against trained warriors, armed with advanced weapons. "We need to send a distress signal," Webb said, his hands shaking as he worked the controls. "Someone in the galaxy must help us." Elder Lyra nodded, though she knew the cruel reality. The Galactic Alliance was weak and divided. Most worlds would offer sympathy but little else. The military forces that existed were scattered and unprepared for an operation of this scale. By the time any help arrived, Celestis Prime would be a smoking ruin. Webb activated the colony's most powerful transmitter, sending their desperate plea across the stars on all frequencies. The message was simple but heartbreaking. A peaceful world under attack, innocent beings facing slavery or death, and a cry for help that seemed to echo into an uncaring void. The signal traveled at light speed through the cosmic darkness, bouncing off communication relays and subspace beacons. Most who received it could only shake their heads in sorrow. The Vorthan Syndicate was too powerful, too ruthless for any single world to challenge. But the signal reached further than the Zephyrians had ever imagined possible. Deep in the Sol system, hidden within an asteroid belt that officially contained only mining operations, Admiral Sarah Chen received the transmission in her command center. The facility was buried so deep within the asteroid that no external sensors could detect it. To the galaxy, it appeared to be just another human mining operation in a system that contained only one inhabited world. Admiral Chen was a woman in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much of war. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, the day when humanity would be forced to reveal its true nature to the galaxy. The human race had joined the galactic community 50 years ago, presenting themselves as a peaceful, single-world species interested only in trade and exploration. It was the greatest deception in galactic history. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Commander David Kim from his station. "We're receiving multiple confirmations of the Zephyrian distress call. The attack appears to be a full-scale invasion by Vorthan forces." Chen studied the tactical display that showed the real-time situation developing around Celestis Prime. Satellite feeds from hidden human observation posts revealed the scale of the attack. Over 200 Vorthan vessels systematically destroying one of the galaxy's most peaceful worlds. The sight filled her with cold rage. "Contact Director Park," she ordered. "Authorization code Omega-7. The secure channel crackled to life, connecting her to Director James Park in the hidden facility, beneath the Sahara Desert on Earth. Park was the head of humanity's most classified project, the Deep Space Defense Initiative. For 50 years, while the galaxy saw humans as harmless newcomers, they had been building the most powerful military force in known space. "I'm watching the feeds from Celestis Prime," Park said without preamble. "The Vorthons have finally pushed too far. Are we ready for full deployment?" Chen looked at her tactical board, where hundreds of indicators showed the status of human fleets hidden throughout the galaxy. Each light represented ships and crews that had waited years for this moment. Mars orbital shipyards, asteroid belt construction facilities, deep space stations disguised as research outposts, all were ready to reveal humanity's true strength. "All fleets report ready status," Chen confirmed. "Operation Silent Thunder is authorized." The order went out on quantum-encrypted channels to human commanders across 30 star systems. In the Proxima Centauri system, Admiral Rebecca Torres received her orders aboard the heavy cruiser Defiant. Her task force of 40 ships had been conducting mineral surveys for a decade while actually patrolling the Outer Rim territories. In the Wolf 359 system, Commander Elena Rodriguez commanded a carrier group that the galaxy believed was a deep space research expedition. Her 12 ships launched their fighter wings in perfect coordination, each pilot trained to a level that would shock the other species who thought humans were newcomers to space warfare. The Tau Ceti industrial complex, officially a terraforming project, suddenly came alive with activity. Massive ships that had been hidden in construction bays for years emerged into open space. These were not the simple transport vessels that humanity showed to the galaxy. They were warships designed with technology that most species believed was decades beyond human capability. But the most shocking revelation came from beyond the edge of known space. Deep in the void between star systems where no civilization was supposed to exist, human fleets that had been secretly established for decades began moving toward Celestis Prime. These ships belonged to humanity's greatest secret: colonies and military bases hidden so far from galactic civilization that they had never appeared on any star chart. The scope of the operation was staggering. Over 800 ships began converging on the Celestis system from a dozen different directions. Each vessel was crewed by humans who had spent their entire careers preparing for the day when their species would stop pretending to be weak and defenseless. Back on Celestis Prime, the situation was growing more desperate by the hour. "Warlord." Kazax watched from his bridge as his forces completed the systematic destruction of Zephyrian civilization. The crystal cities lay in ruins, their beautiful spires reduced to glittering rubble. Thousands of Zephyrians had been captured and loaded onto slave transports, while many more hid in underground shelters, praying that somehow their desperate signal would bring salvation. Elder Lyra crouched in an emergency bunker beneath the capital city, surrounded by survivors whose world had been destroyed in a single day. The elderly, the young, the artists and farmers who had never known violence. All of them looked to her for hope that she could not give. "Has anyone responded to our signal?" asked Dr. Mira, the colony's chief scientist. Her gentle features were marked by tears and ash from the burning city above. Lyra checked her portable communicator, though she held little hope. The major powers of the galaxy were too distant or too weak to challenge the Vorthan Syndicate. "Nothing yet," she whispered. "But we must keep faith. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone must care about justice." She could not have imagined that at that very moment, the largest military fleet in galactic history was racing toward her world at maximum speed. The human ships moved through hyperspace with a precision that would have amazed other species. Their navigation systems, officially primitive by galactic standards, were actually more advanced than anything the established civilizations possessed. The secret of human expansion had been their ability to travel faster and farther than anyone believed possible. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of her flagship, the massive dreadnought Titan, watching the tactical display as her forces approached the Celestis system. 800 ships were now less than 6 hours away from revealing humanity's true face to the galaxy. "All fleets report ready for combat operations," reported her tactical officer. "The Vorthan forces appear to be completely unaware of our approach." Chen nodded grimly. The Vorthans were about to learn that the galaxy's newest members were not the helpless primitives they appeared to be. Humanity had spent 50 years watching, learning, and preparing for the day when their moral code would force them to act. That day had finally arrived. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," Chen ordered. "Operation Silent Thunder is now active. Remember, we are not just fighting for the Zephyrians. We are announcing to the galaxy that some lines should never be crossed." The message went out to every human ship in the converging fleets. Captains and crews who had spent years in secret preparation felt their hearts race with anticipation. The time for hiding was over. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity was truly capable of when innocent lives were threatened. As the human fleets dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Celestis system, sensors throughout Vorthon space began detecting energy signatures, unlike anything in their databases. The readings were so massive that many operators assumed their equipment was malfunctioning. Warlord Kazex was reviewing the day's conquest when his tactical officer called out in alarm. "Sir, we are detecting multiple fleet signatures approaching the system. The readings are unprecedented." Kazex looked at his display with growing confusion. The energy signatures were massive, far larger than any known fleet composition. "Identification?" "Unknown, sir. The technology signatures do not match any civilization in our database. There are hundreds of them." For the first time in his career, Warlord Kazex felt a chill of uncertainty. His forces had conquered dozens of worlds, always through superior numbers and ruthless tactics. But the approaching fleet dwarfed his own forces by a margin he had never encountered. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Let us see who dares to interfere with Vorthon expansion." The response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies with a clarity that spoke of advanced communication technology. The voice was calm, professional, and absolutely certain. "Vorthon forces, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Federation Deep Space Fleet. You have attacked a peaceful world and committed acts of aggression against innocent civilians. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw from Celestis Prime and release all prisoners. This is your only warning." The bridge of Kazex's ship fell silent. Human Federation? The humans were supposed to be a weak, single-world species with primitive technology. How could they field a fleet capable of challenging the Vorthan Syndicate? "Transmit our response," Kazex snarled, his warrior pride overcoming his confusion. "Tell these humans that the Vorthan Syndicate bows to no one. If they want to fight, we will give them one they will never forget." But even as he spoke, his sensors were revealing the true scale of what was approaching. 800 ships, many of them larger than his own dreadnought, were taking positions throughout the system. The humans had not just sent a fleet. They had sent an armada. The galaxy was about to witness the end of one of its most brutal empires and the rise of its newest protector. Thunder across the stars. The hour passed like a held breath across the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations throughout civilized space had detected the massive energy signatures converging on the Celestis system. Emergency sessions convened in government halls on 100 worlds as intelligence agencies tried to understand what was happening in the distant star system. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Kazex stared at the tactical display with growing unease. The human fleet had taken positions throughout the system with a precision that spoke of advanced military training. Their ships hung in space like predators, their weapon systems charged but not yet firing. The formation was perfect. Every angle of escape blocked, every tactical advantage secured. "Status report," Kazex demanded, his voice betraying none of the uncertainty that gnawed at him. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with obvious confusion. "Sir, their technology is unlike anything in our database. Energy signatures are off the charts. Some of these vessels are reading as larger than our super dreadnoughts, and their shield generators are producing power levels we have never encountered." Kazex's reptilian features twisted in a snarl. The Vorthon Syndicate had built its empire on technological superiority and overwhelming force. They possessed the most advanced warships in known space, weapons that could reduce planets to ash, and shields that had never been breached in combat. How could a primitive species challenge them? "Begin combat operations," he ordered. "Target their command ships first. Show these humans what happens when they interfere with Vorthon expansion." The Vorthon fleet opened fire with devastating fury. Energy beams that could crack moons lanced across space toward the human vessels. Plasma torpedoes capable of destroying entire city blocks streaked through the void. Missile salvos that had annihilated the fleets of 3 different civilizations converged on the human formation. The display screens throughout the Vorthon fleet showed the incoming barrage, enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Any known fleet would have been reduced to glowing debris in seconds. But as the weapons reached their targets, something impossible happened. The human ships absorbed the attacks without visible damage. Their shields flared with brilliant light as they deflected energy beams that should have punched through any known defensive system. Plasma torpedoes that could melt battle armor dissipated harmlessly against their hulls. The missile barrage simply vanished as point defense systems more advanced than anything in Vorthon databases swept them from space. Aboard the human flagship Titan, Admiral Chen watched the enemy barrage with calm professionalism. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their instruments showing that the Vorthon attack had barely stressed their defensive systems. 50 years of secret development had produced technology that made humanity's ships nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. "Damage report," Chen requested, though she already knew the answer. "No damage to any vessel, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. "Shield strength remains at 100% across the fleet. The Vorthon weapons are approximately 30 years behind our current defensive capabilities." Chen nodded. Humanity had learned much by quietly observing galactic conflicts while pretending to be peaceful newcomers. Every battle, every technological advancement, every tactical innovation had been studied and improved upon in secret. The result was a military force that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Open fire," she ordered simply. The human response was swift and devastating. 800 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Their targeting systems coordinated by quantum communication arrays that allowed perfect synchronization across the entire fleet. But these were not the crude energy weapons that other species employed. Human plasma cannons fired streams of matter heated to temperatures that existed only in the hearts of stars. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, turned Vorthon shields into useless static. Most terrifying of all were the gravitational weapons, devices that could create localized distortions in spacetime itself, crushing enemy vessels from within. The first wave of human fire struck the Vorthon fleet like the judgment of angry gods. The massive dreadnought beside Kazex's flagship simply ceased to exist, its molecular structure torn apart by gravitational forces beyond comprehension. A squadron of heavy cruisers that had conquered a dozen worlds evaporated in balls of plasma hotter than solar coronas. Kazakh watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed. Ships that had never known defeat were reduced to scrap metal in seconds. The technological advantage that had made Vorthan expansion possible had been rendered meaningless by human engineering that seemed to violate the known laws of physics. "All ships, retreat!" Kazakh screamed into his communicator. "Full emergency burn, get us out of here!" But the human fleet had anticipated this response. As the surviving Vorthan vessels attempted to flee, they found their escape routes blocked by human ships that had somehow moved faster than their sensors could track. The humans were not just technologically superior, they were tactically brilliant. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched from the bridge of her carrier as Vorthan fighters tried desperately to break through the human formation. Her own fighters were already launching, sleek vessels that moved through space with a grace that defied conventional understanding of physics. "This is Commander Rodriguez to all fighter wings," she broadcast. "Remember, our mission is to disable enemy vessels. When possible, these beings may be warriors, but they are still living creatures. Show them the mercy they denied the Zephyrians." The space battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human fighters danced through the void with impossible agility, their pilots trained to standards that other species would have considered superhuman. They struck with surgical precision, disabling weapon systems and engines while leaving life support intact. The larger human vessels continued their systematic destruction of the Vorthan war fleet. Each shot was calculated for maximum tactical effect. Command ships were targeted first, disrupting enemy coordination. Heavy weapons platforms were neutralized before they could threaten the rescue operations beginning on Celestis Prime. On the planet's surface, Elder Lyra emerged from her shelter to witness something that would be remembered for generations. The sky above Celestis Prime was filled with human landing craft, their hulls gleaming with unfamiliar alloys. But these were not invasion forces. They were rescue teams. The first human to set foot on Zephyrian soil was Dr. Amanda Foster, a xenobiologist who had spent years studying alien physiology in preparation for this moment. Her medical team carried equipment that could treat injuries the Zephyrians had never encountered, heal wounds that their medicine could not touch. "Elder Lyra?" Dr. Foster asked, her voice gentle despite the chaos around them. "I am Dr. Foster, of the Human Federation Medical Corps. We are here to help." Lyra stared at the human woman in amazement. Dr. Foster was smaller than most Zephyrians, her features compact but kind. Her equipment hummed with advanced technology, but her manner was that of a healer, not a conqueror. "You came," Lyra whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You actually came to help us." More human teams were landing across the planet. Engineers who began immediately repairing the damaged crystal cities. Agricultural specialists who worked to save the burning crop fields. Search and rescue teams who located Zephyrian survivors hidden throughout the devastated settlements. But perhaps most importantly, the human ships in orbit began intercepting the Vorthan slave transports. Boarding teams equipped with non-lethal weapons stormed the vessels, freeing the captured Zephyrians with the efficiency that spoke of extensive training for these exact scenarios. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led one such boarding team onto a Vorthan transport vessel. The corridors were filled with cages containing hundreds of Zephyrian civilians, farmers, artists, children who had been torn from their homes. The sight filled her with cold fury. The Vorthan guards who tried to resist were subdued with weapons that simply shut down their nervous systems temporarily. No killing, no permanent harm, but absolute effectiveness. Within minutes, every Zephyrian prisoner was free, receiving medical attention from human medics who had studied their physiology in secret for decades. Back in space, the battle was nearing its end. Of the 200 ships that Warlord Kazakh had brought to subjugate Celestis Prime, fewer than 30 remained operational. His own flagship was crippled, its engines disabled by a human weapon that had somehow reached through his shields without causing any other damage. "Impossible," Kazakh muttered, staring at his ruined fleet. "We are the Vorthan Syndicate. We have conquered 100 worlds. How can these primitives defeat us so easily? His question was answered by Admiral Chen herself, her image appearing on his command screen with perfect clarity. The human woman looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, only disappointment and determination. "Warlord Kazex," she said, her voice carrying across the void between their ships. "Your forces are defeated. Your expansion ends here. But we are not like you. We do not kill unnecessarily. Surrender now, and your surviving crews will be treated according to the laws of civilized warfare." Kazex laughed bitterly. "Laws of civilized warfare? You speak like the weak species we have conquered. Power is the only law in this galaxy. Today you may have won, but the Vorthan Empire spans 50 systems. Our fleets will return, and we will make your entire species pay for this humiliation." Chen's expression did not change. "I had hoped you would be more reasonable." "Very well. Let me show you why that will never happen." New contacts appeared on Kazex's sensors. More human ships, but these were different. Larger, more advanced, carrying energy signatures that dwarfed even the massive fleet that had already defeated him. These vessels emerged from hyperspace, with a precision that spoke of technology far beyond anything he had imagined possible. "These are the ships of the Human Federation Deep Strike Fleet," Chen explained calmly. "While we have been dealing with your forces here, similar fleets have been neutralizing Vorthan military installations throughout your empire. Your shipyards on Vorth Prime are now under human control. Your fortress worlds have surrendered. Your raiding bases have been eliminated." The tactical display in front of Kazex showed the scope of the human operation. In a single coordinated strike, humanity had simultaneously attacked every major Vorthan installation across 50 star systems. The empire that had taken decades to build had been dismantled in a matter of hours. "This is impossible," Kazex whispered. "No species has the resources to mount operations of this scale. You are supposed to be a single-world civilization with primitive technology." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "That was the idea. For 50 years, humanity has allowed the galaxy to believe we were weak and harmless. We established colonies in systems so remote that they never appeared on any star chart. We built fleets in hidden shipyards that no other species even suspected existed. We prepared for the day when our moral code would require us to act." The scope of the deception was staggering. While the galaxy had watched humanity as newcomers struggling to adapt to galactic civilization, they had actually been building the most extensive military-industrial complex in known space. Hidden colonies had provided resources and personnel. Secret research facilities had developed technology decades ahead of galactic standards. Covert intelligence operations had mapped every potential threat and weakness. But why? Kazex asked, his warrior pride finally broken by the magnitude of his defeat. Why hide such power? Why not use it to conquer as we did? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because that is not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that true strength comes, not from the ability to destroy but from the wisdom to protect. We hid our capabilities because we hoped never to need them. But when innocent beings cry out for help, when peaceful worlds face destruction, we cannot stand aside. On Celestis Prime, the rescue operations continued throughout the night. Human, medical teams worked tirelessly to treat injured Zephyrians, their equipment performing miracles that local doctors had never imagined possible. Engineering teams began the complex work of rebuilding the crystal cities, their technology allowing them to restore structures that would have taken years to repair with conventional methods. Elder Lyra walked through the ruins of her capital, city, amazed by what she saw. Human workers labored alongside Zephyrian volunteers, their translator devices allowing perfect communication despite the language barrier. Children from both species played together in the refugee camps, their innocence transcending the differences between their races. "Dr. Foster," Lyra called to the human medical officer, who had become her constant companion during the crisis. "How is this possible? Your people possess technology that surpasses our most advanced civilizations, yet you use it to heal rather than conquer." Dr. Foster looked up from the Zephyrian child she was treating, a young girl who had been separated from her parents during the attack. The human woman's gentle manner had won the trust of even the most frightened survivors. "It is who we are," she replied simply. Humanity learned through bitter experience that power without compassion leads only to destruction. We have the capability to devastate worlds, but we choose to save them instead. News of the human intervention spread across the galaxy faster than the fleeing Vorthon survivors. Emergency sessions convened in government halls throughout civilized space, as intelligence agencies tried to process the implications of what had happened. The quiet, peaceful humans who had joined the galactic community 50 years ago had revealed themselves to be the most powerful military force in known space. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the sudden shift in galactic power balance. Ambassador Thorne of the Altarian Federation stood at the central podium, reading from reports that seemed too incredible to believe. Confirmed intelligence suggests that humanity has been operating military installations in over 300 star systems, Thorne announced to the stunned assembly. Their fleet strength is estimated at over 10,000 vessels, many of which employ technology decades ahead of our current understanding. The hall buzzed with nervous conversation. Species that had considered themselves among the galaxy's most advanced civilizations suddenly realized they were primitives compared to the secretive humans. Fear and amazement warred in equal measure as delegates tried to understand the implications. Representative Kayla of the peaceful Meridian worlds raised her hand for recognition. What are humanity's intentions? Do they plan to establish an empire like the Vorthons? Should we prepare for conquest? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone remembered how the Vorthons had begun their expansion, first helping against pirates and raiders, then slowly establishing dominance over those they claimed to protect. Would humanity follow the same pattern? Their answer came from David Park, the human representative who had sat quietly in the council chambers for decades. The unassuming diplomat stood slowly, his simple manner unchanged despite the revelation of his species' true power. "Honored delegates," Park said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "Humanity has no territorial ambitions beyond our current borders. We revealed our capabilities only because innocent beings faced destruction. Our fleets will return to their hidden bases. Our colonies will remain concealed. We ask only for the right to continue protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The simplicity of the statement was more powerful than any grand declaration. Humanity had demonstrated the ability to conquer the galaxy, but instead chose to return to the shadows. They wanted neither tribute nor territory, only the freedom to act when morality demanded it. As the days passed and the full scope of the human operation became clear, a new understanding emerged throughout the galaxy. The quiet species that had seemed so unremarkable was actually the guardian that kept the peace. Their hidden fleets patrolled the void between stars, their secret bases watched for signs of aggression, their advanced technology stood ready to defend the innocent. The Vorthon Syndicate, once the most feared empire in known space, had ceased to exist. Their surviving ships had been converted to hospital vessels and refugee transports. Their warrior crews were being retrained as peacekeepers and disaster relief specialists. The transformation was as complete as it was unexpected. On Celestis Prime, the crystal cities were rising again, their spires gleaming in the light of the twin suns. Zephyrian artists worked alongside human engineers, creating structures that blended the beauty of both cultures. The agricultural fields were green once more, their luminescent crops promising abundance for worlds throughout the sector. Elder Lyra stood in her rebuilt observation tower, watching human ships prepare to depart. The massive vessels that had saved her world were returning to whatever hidden bases they called home. Soon they would fade back into legend, leaving only the memory of their intervention. "Will we see you again?" she asked Dr. Foster, who had become like a daughter to her during the reconstruction. The human woman smiled, her eyes reflecting both sadness and determination. "If you ever need us, we will come. That is the promise humanity makes to all peaceful worlds. We may remain hidden, but we are always watching, always ready to help." As the last human ship disappeared into hyperspace, the galaxy settled into a new era of peace. Pirates and raiders found their targets mysteriously defended by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Aggressive empires discovered that their expansion plans were somehow known and countered before they could begin. Wars that should have devastated entire sectors ended with the mysterious intervention of forces that left no trace of their presence. The galaxy had gained a silent guardian, a protector that asked for nothing in return for its vigilance. Humanity had chosen to use its overwhelming power not for conquest, but for preservation of the peace that allowed all species to flourish. In the depths of space, in hidden bases that no star chart would ever show, human crews continued their eternal watch. They were the guardians in the darkness, the shield that protected the innocent, the answer to every desperate call for help that echoed across the void. The silent signal had been answered, and the galaxy would never be the same.